mLab Studio. mLab Studio. mLab Studio. mLab Studio.
Welcome to mLab Studio, and this is our second episode. Today we're going to be covering a bunch of stuff on how to actually get started, what tools you need, as well as we're going to create a couple of little small applications to show you guys the concepts that you need to know. So let's go and have a look at how to get the tools. So the first place you have to go to is dev.windowsphone.com or dev.windows.com and download the SDK. As you can see on the screen here, what we've got is dev.windowsphone.com, and you can just go get SDK and problem solved. If you want to go to get the Windows 8 SDK, what you need to go to is go to downloads at dev.windows.com and go to the download now. One of the small things you need to know is that you need Windows 8 to develop a Windows 8. Now if you don't have Windows 8, you can get a trial version off of this website. If you have an MSDN license, you can get automatically off of the MSDN. So I've already gone and downloaded both of these SDKs, and I have Visual Studio up and running. This is Visual Studio. So what Visual Studio is your integrated development environment. What the integrated development environment allows you to do is it enables you to develop code in a very easy kind of fashion. It manages a lot of kind of back-end things for you, like compilation, as well as how to manage your projects. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and actually create a brand new project. So what you'll see is this new project window pops up, and it gives you a bunch of options based on languages and some of the other kind of SDKs that you have installed. So I have pretty much the entire suite installed. But what you have is you have C#, C++, and JavaScript are the languages we're going to focus on. The first one is going to be JavaScript. Now JavaScript allows us to create Windows 8 applications using HTML5 and JavaScript. So if you're a web developer, it's very easy to pick up those skills. So I'm just going to go and create a blank application in HTML5 and JavaScript. And what this is actually doing now is this is actually creating all the kind of resources that you need to get started. So what you'll see here is you've got a default.html, which if you're a web developer you should be very kind of used to seeing. And then you have a bunch of JavaScript files that sit inside of default.js. So if I go to the screen, this is where all your backend application programming is going on. So like I said, it's very much, if you're a web developer and you've been using HTML and JavaScript, it's very easy to pick up Windows 8 skills. So that's the first one. The next thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to actually go to File, New Project, and I'm going to create a brand new project, but this time I'm going to go to C# and I'm going to create a new Windows 8 Store application. So what you'll see is the big difference here now is it uses a different format, XAML and C# as your front end and your back end languages. Now if I go to my XAML page, what it will do is that it loads a designer which allows me to see what I'm currently kind of working with, as well as the XAML below, which is here. The XAML below is just basically an XML markup for the content that we're currently displaying. Very similar to HTML, it's just a little different, it's a very bit different standard at the end. From here I can go back to my code behind, where I can just expand the page, go into the code behind, and this is actually where most of the programming takes part. This is where you'll be connecting to classes, where you'll be connecting to web services or RESTful calls and so on. One of the really nice things about the designer is it allows you to kind of WYSIWYG interact with the actual tools. So on the left hand side I can go to my toolbox and I have a list of controls that I can now add to my page. So if I wanted to add a button to the page, I can go and select my button, click and drag, and then my button is on the screen. Very much WYSIWYG. I'd recommend start playing with the layout designer as I've shown you now, but also get to know XAML as markup language. It makes your life a lot easier when trying to put together different screens, as well as just kind of interacting with the application a bit more efficiently. What I can do now is I can double click on this button here, and it will automatically create an event that will get thrown when someone clicks on the button. Okay, so I will show you an example now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and run this blank application. So I can go up here and just click Run Local Machine. So what this will do now, this will actually build my application, install it onto the computer and run it. And there we go. You see I've got my little button here. Currently it does nothing, but that's my application. So I'm going to kill this application by clicking at the top of the page and dragging down. And then I'm going to go back here. So now you've seen how kind of simple it is to kind of start with a Windows 8 application. This gives you the core framework. There is a nicer template which you can use if you want to get to know it a bit quicker. If you go to Project and you go to Grid Application and click OK, this basically creates a very kind of deep template or project for you that already has a lot of kind of wiring up for you. So if I now go into my grouped item page, you'll see I have a bunch of items in here which are automatically populated for kind of navigating in a standard Windows 8 style. So if I drag down here, you'll see this thing's quite populated. If I go and run this on my local machine, you'll see now it's actually got a lot more information. There's a bunch of test data. I can switch between different items and so on. So it's another good place to start. Okay, so that's Windows 8. Now what about phone? So if I go File, New, Project, and I go to Windows Phone here, I can now go and create different types of Windows Phone applications. So I'm just going to create a standard Windows Phone app. I'm going to click OK. The next thing you see is this pop-up that asks us which platform are we going to be targeting. So this platform gives us the option between 7.1 and 8. And we're going to first create a 7.1 project just to show you the slight differences and also to just kind of demo some of the other features that are available. So I'm going to target Windows Phone 7.1. Maybe I'm doing this because I want to target the existing phone base as well as Windows Phone 8 at the same time, because Windows Phone 7.1 applications do run on Windows 8 devices. You'll see the only big difference here is that your designer lays out automatically with your phone on the left hand side with your XAML on the right hand side. Reason for this is because of the orientation of the phone. What I can do now is I'm going to just drag a button from my toolbox onto the screen. I'm just going to double click it to bind an event. But one of the really nice features that comes with Windows Phone is that you have an emulator, and this is true for both Windows Phone 7.1 and 8. So if I run this emulator now, what it's going to do is it's actually going to start up an instance of the phone operating system on your device or on your laptop. Once it's started up, it's going to deploy the application to that kind of virtual instance of Windows Phone, and then it's going to connect that application to that version running on the emulator. So the connecting takes a little bit of time for the first time that you run it. What you'll see now is it's currently connecting to all the different libraries. So now that your application is loaded on the emulator, you can see it's the phone. I can now go and double click on the buttons and I can actually interact with my application. So now that you've seen how to create applications for Windows 8 and Windows Phone and the basics of the tooling, what we're going to do in the next session is we're going to be covering more detail about each of the different platforms and the different programming languages. Thanks to our sponsors for making this all possible, and thank you very much for watching. See you next time.